Hello, everyone. Happy Election Day, and thank you for joining us for today's educational webinar. My name is Corey Daharsh, and I'll be speaking to you today about checkbook control LLCs, or the checkbook control strategy to build your retirement wealth. And we titled this Cast Your Vote for Checkbook Control. Again, given today's election day, and I'll go over a little bit more of the reason why we titled it Cast Your Vote with respect to checkbook control as I get into today's presentation. A little bit about myself. Again, my name is Corey Daharsh. I've been with Advanta IRA since 2016. I served a number of years as a client account manager where I process transactions day to day for our clients. And all of my contact information's here. You can scan that QR code on the screen to pull up my private landing page and more information about me and some of my other recent educational webinars. I do want to let you know as an audience that you will be muted for the duration of my presentation today, but I do encourage participation. So if you have any questions or would like me to discuss anything more thoroughly or questions that come up as I'm making the presentation, please use the questions box on the GoToWebinar panel that you should have on your screen to go ahead and type those through. I have that up on a separate screen and I'll be able to address them as I'm presenting, or I've got a slide at the end where I'm happy to field any other questions that may come about. Also, if you're watching this live, that's great. You will receive a copy of this webinar emailed to you within about a day or two. And anyone that signs up for our webinars that cannot attend live, receive that same copy or could always find these webinars posted to our YouTube page. It's just searching for Advanta IRA on YouTube and you'll find our full catalog of previous educational webinars, our podcast, the Alternative Investing Advantage podcast, hosted by my colleague Alex Perney, and a lot of other great resources for you to be found on our website as well, advantaira.com. So a little bit about Advanta IRA. We've been in the self-directed retirement investing industry for over 20 years now. We've got over $3 billion in assets under management held by our clients through their retirement accounts. All of our clients' funds that are not actively invested are insured with FDIC institutions. So the money that you don't have invested is safe and secure for you. And as I mentioned in my previous role as a client account manager, every client of ours gets a dedicated client account manager appointed to them. So you have a one-to-one white glove customer service experience. You have someone to reach out to if you have questions, if you have an investment you'd like to fund, where you're not just having to call a huge call center and deal with a new person every time, explaining who you are and what you're trying to do. It really helps build continuity between our clients and their account manager. So it's a very smooth and simple process for you to self-direct your retirement funds. So my agenda today is going to be, again, focused on the checkbook control strategy. I've just got some brief explanation on what self-directed retirement accounts are and the rules behind them, various asset classes you could invest into. And then I'm going to jump into what the checkbook IRA is, what it means, how you can obtain it and utilize it. I'm going to go into how to set these things up and follow the IRS's rules as you're getting your checkbook LLC set up, some legal considerations, and I've got a case study as well before I wrap up and answer any final questions that the audience may have. Brief disclaimer, this is for educational purposes. I'm not here to provide any tax advice, legal advice, or financial advice. Please seek your own counsel in those various respects. I'm here simply to provide educational content on the checkbook control strategy and self-direction as a whole. Please take that for what it's worth and proceed with your own due diligence as you see fitting. So what is a self-directed IRA? It's basically a unique investment tool that allows you to invest into alternative assets where you otherwise maybe with a fiduciary or a financial advisor custodian that only allows you to invest into stocks, bonds, mutual funds, assets that they have done underwriting and due diligence on and either suggest for you or from a fiduciary or financial advisor standpoint, advise you into investing on. Advanta IRA, again, as I said on the disclaimer slide, does not provide any tax advice, legal advice, or financial advice. We just follow the IRS's rules and let you, the account holder and investor, choose whatever you want to invest into and facilitate those investments within the IRS's guidelines. This is basically a further reiteration of everything I've just said, with a few different asset classes listed here as well. So just to put into perspective, you can use a self-directed IRA to invest into real estate, paper assets like mortgages or promissory notes, private placements or limited partnership syndications, precious metals, cryptocurrency, much, much more. So pretty much anything under the sun you may want to invest into or have an expertise in is likely a way to structure a deal with your retirement account into those asset classes. And the checkbook control strategy we're talking about today is a investment vehicle that helps simplify that and put more power in your control as you're going into those unique asset classes. So if you haven't heard about self-directed retirement accounts, that's actually pretty common. Most people have a fiduciary custodian, and they tend to try to shy away or make you think this is too risky or too scary because they want your dollars in their hands, and they want to be advising you on how to spend your own dollars or invest with your own dollars. Where if you are knowledgeable about an investment strategy or would like to take the risk of making your own decisions, there's no reason you shouldn't feel free and capable of doing so. Only about 4% of US-based retirement accounts are self-directed. That in total is an industry that has just about $40 trillion in it. So only about 1.5 trillion are currently being self-directed of all of the US-based IRAs, 401ks, and other plan types that you can self-direct. And going right into that, the type of plans that we offer, if you're an individual and you have W-2 earnings, you can have a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA and contribute to that annually. You may have had someone pass away in your life that left an IRA behind to you, so that's an inherited IRA that you can self-direct. You can have a health savings or education savings account, which can be self-directed. And if you're a small business owner or self-employed, there are great plan types for you as well. That would be the solo 401k or the SEP or simple IRA plans. And all of those plan types, the solo, the SEP, and the simple, are actually now allowing for Roth money as well. So post-tax dollars to be invested as opposed to tax-deferred funds specifically. That's a new legislation that just passed and went into effect this year. So if you're interested in any of those plan types or to learn more about what plan type fits your needs best, you can contact me directly and I'll be happy to talk through things or provide you some good content. So why do people choose to self-direct? It's very common that people see this as a new source of capital if they're already doing some investing with their own savings or their own finances and say, oh, I've got a retirement account and I'm not really satisfied with the stock market maybe. So I want to use that money into alternative assets and things I'm already investing into with my personal pocket that I couldn't invest into through my fiduciary account. And then the tax benefits of investing through your retirement account are also a key factor. A lot of people generate income, and then that income is either tax deferred, meaning they just pay taxes on it later in life when they start taking money out of this retirement account to live off of when they truly retire. Or if you're investing with a Roth fund, that is post-tax money. So all the growth you create in a Roth account is never going to be taxed in the future. You've already paid taxes to put the money in the account. You've grown it through your investments and your returns on investments, and then you do not have to worry about taxes in the future. Another outline of some alternative assets. I went over some basic ones earlier, but just to pinpoint a few here, you can invest into farm animals, you can invest into movie projects, oil and gas, Forex or futures accounts, private land. There's a lot of different things you can do, as I alluded to earlier. It really is just based off of what either your interests are or what your personal experiences are, what you know how to do to generate passive income. So I'm going to take a few minutes just to go over the rules to help you better apply what your investment strategies or goals may be to self-directed retirement account investing. So one of the major things that people don't understand is really how simple these rules are. A lot of people think this is, I can't do this or I can't do that. I can't invest into this asset class or that asset class. And that's really a common misnomer. The only asset classes that you're specifically not allowed to invest into are life insurance policies and anything that would be considered to be a collectible or subjective valued. like antiques, fine wine, artwork, alcohol, stamps, some coins. There are coins allowed in a self-directed account, but that falls under the precious metals category, like American Eagle, silver bullion, those types of things can be invested. More of the unique, like kind of one-off coins you may see infomercials about are things that you really shouldn't be holding in a retirement account. But outside of those asset classes, pretty much any other asset that I've shown on those two previous slides, you can invest into with your retirement dollars. The only other way that the IRS really restricts these accounts is by labeling certain individuals close to you as disqualified persons. So you're not able to transact with a disqualified person, meaning I can't buy an asset from a disqualified person or sell an asset to a disqualified person or let a disqualified person benefit from an asset held in my retirement account. I'm going to go into actually who the disqualified persons are on the next slide, but before I do so, I did want to quickly reference, depending on your investment strategy, there are some taxes that may apply. I've got UBIT listed here, unrelated business income tax, and that comes into play when you're making investments in your retirement account that are generating some active income as opposed to solely passive income. For example, if you wanted to invest into a functioning business like a laundromat or a car wash, you can certainly make those investments, but depending on the structure of that laundromat or car wash, it may trigger some UBIT tax to be paid. So that's something to just understand thoroughly as you're vetting out and doing due diligence and underwriting on the investment that may come to play. The other type of tax not listed here, but I figure I might as well mention it, is UDFI tax, unrelated debt financed income tax. That comes to play if you're utilizing leverage with your retirement account to make an investment. So let's say I want to use $400,000 in my retirement account to go buy a $500,000 property that I'm going to use for rental, but I need to take out a $100,000 loan to close on that property. I'm not actually taking out the loan in this case, my retirement account is, and the portion of that leverage property, so 1/5, is going to be subject to UDFI tax. So if you're interested in more of the niche tax information, you can let me know and I can point you in the direction of some great content there. Just figured I'd mention it very briefly as we're talking about the broad scope of investment strategies that can all really be held within a checkbook control IRA. So disqualified persons, as I promised, are basically your lineal tree, the main trunk of that tree. So your parents, your grandparents, your children, your grandchildren, your spouse, and any businesses that any of those individuals own or control 50% or more of, or make day-to-day decisions on behalf of. So to apply that to the rules I just referenced, I can't buy a property in my retirement account and let my father's business be the tenant at that property. I can't buy a property in the town that my child is going to college in and let my child be the tenant of that property. Those are just two basic examples, but you'll notice here that there are relatives that are not considered disqualified persons, like your siblings, your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, other distant relatives, your friends, your colleagues. Those are not disqualified, so you can transact with those individuals. And before I pass the disqualified person slide, I also want to mention you can partner with disqualified persons as long as you're sitting on the same side of a transaction and you're going into the transaction with a set dollar amount that each of you are contributing that breaks down to a set ownership percentage in the asset. You're certainly allowed to partner with disqualified persons. So my retirement account and my father's retirement account could go buy a property together or invest into any real asset class that we've referenced in today's presentation thus far. So checkbook control. What a checkbook control is basically you having direct access to your retirement funds. So if you do not establish checkbook control, you're in what's called a custodial or an administrative account, where your administrator or custodian, Advanta IRA in our case, is actually handling the record keeping of your assets, holding the assets on file in our records, and handling the income and outgoing expenses for the asset. So as a custodian or administrator, you coordinate the transaction and then you let that administrator custodian facilitate the active activity for that investment, cash flow in, cash flow out, processing the sale transaction when you remove the asset from your retirement account, That's the custodial model. What we're here to talk about today is the checkbook model, where you actually set up either an LLC, or a checkbook can also be obtained directly in a 401k, where you set up your own bank account, you process an investment of your retirement account investing into that LLC, move the money into that bank account, and then you, as the manager of the LLC and holder of that bank account, make any investments you see fit in the name of the checkbook. So in the name of the LLC or the name of the 401k, as I'll explain a little bit more thoroughly later. So this puts the power of your own retirement dollars in your hands. It also puts the onus on you to make sure you're following those IRS rules that I've outlined so far. If you have any questions, you have an account manager here to answer those and assist you before you make any transactions or do anything that could be potentially prohibited. But we're also not big brother on your LLC or on your transaction. So you do have the onus and liability where you could go out and potentially do something prohibited. So make sure you fully understand the rules, or circle back with your client account manager before you make any actions with your account if you're not 100% sure. Again, the rules for checkbook control specifically is that the checkbook control vehicle, the LLC, must be managed or managed with your retirement account appointed as the sole member. It can include more than just one member, but the ownership percentages are based on the initial contribution. So if I set up an LLC with $100,000 and $70,000 comes from my retirement account and $30,000 comes from my spouse, then that ownership is going to be set at 70-30. And anytime more money needs to go into that LLC, it has to be at that same percentage. So if we wanted to put 10,000 more in, 7,000 has to come from my retirement account, 3,000 has to come from my partners. If they cannot facilitate their portion, then my hands are tied from putting my portion in there, because the ownership percentage has to stay locked. When you have additional capital contributions, again, you need to make sure that those ownership percentages stay locked. And that's really an additional investment transaction of your retirement account funding into the LLC as the investment that we're holding on our records. This may include provisions about prohibited transactions. There's no tax returns required when it's a single member LLC. If you do have multi-members, then there are some tax filings that may need to be handled. And there is case law to support that you can have checkbook control. If you're interested, that would be Swanson versus Commissioner and the tax court memo of T.L. Ellis. Those basically identified that yes, being the manager of your own checkbook LLC is an allowable strategy for a retirement account, and then further outlines that as the manager of your own IRA's LLC, you're doing that for the benefit of your retirement account, and you are not allowed to compensate yourself. So I can't pay myself a salary or reimburse myself for any personal expenses, which I shouldn't be incurring anyway, on behalf of being the manager of my own IRA's LLC. I don't see any questions coming in yet, so I do want to remind the audience, maybe some people signed in after I got started. You are muted for today's webinar. But if you have questions, please use the questions box in the GoToWebinar panel. I'll be happy to address and assist with those accordingly. So a few different ways you can obtain checkbook control. The primary way that most people do it is with an LLC. So setting up an LLC to be invested into by your retirement account. But you can also set up a trust. The difference here is that with an LLC, you are the manager, and or any other people that you appoint as the manager on the LLC's operating agreement, you have direct control of the check writing or debit card in the name of that LLC. And the title of ownership is going to be in the name of the LLC for any assets that you choose to purchase. With a trust, you cannot be the trustee of the trust agreement that your retirement account invests into. So you do have to appoint a non-disqualified person to be the trustee. You do not have the check writing capabilities for the trust. You have to have the trustee basically facilitate your investment transactions. Title of ownership is going to be in the name of the trust, and the retirement account is going to be the grantor or the beneficiary of the trust. So slightly different, but accomplishes the same end goal for investment purposes. There are reasons people go to a trust as opposed to an LLC. Again, I'm not here to give any legal feedback as to which is better. That's really a personal decision and part of due diligence for you to decide which one works for you. So forming the Checkbook LLC, in the general scope of how you get this set up, You're filing the articles of organization in the state of your choice. You're going to the IRS to obtain a tax ID number. And however you deem necessary, you're providing a operating agreement for the LLC. Those are the three key factors. For reasons, again, from a legal standpoint, I can't influence. People use the state of their choice, the state of their residence. Sometimes people go to Wyoming, sometimes people go to Delaware. There's various reasons to go to different states. That's up to you to do your due diligence on and see what works best for you. Majority of people just use the state that they reside in, though. As far as the tax ID number, you just go on the IRS's website, you apply for a tax ID number, usually get that back very quickly. So that's a pretty standard process and simple to accommodate. And then the operating agreement, I've seen people submit operating agreements that are 1 to 3 pages. I've seen people submit 20, 30-page operating agreements. We don't have any specifics on how you facilitate that operating agreement. We do outline certain things that need to be identified in that operating agreement, like the capital commitment and contributions from each member, the ownership being that it is a manager-managed LLC and that you're appointing yourself and any other appointees as managers, and you're identifying your retirement account and any other contributors as the members. But it's a very simple, straightforward process. Once you have those three things in line, you open up a bank account. When you open up the bank account, you're really just walking into any financial institution of your choice, telling them, hey, I want to set up a bank account in the name of this LLC. Here's my articles of organization. Here is my operating agreement to show that I am the manager and have the rights to set up this bank account. And that's as simple as it has to be. A lot of times, the bank representative is not very familiar with the checkbook control strategy or IRAs investing through LLCs. So it's best to keep it as simple as possible so that you don't get caught up and tied up with their compliance department thinking that you need to set up an IRA account with that financial institution because they're not going to offer checkbook control at that level. So it's just going to be more of a hassle. And again, that's what we're here for. I've walked plenty of bank representatives and clients through that process over the phone and via email. I just want to give a heed of warning. I think I have an additional reiteration of that on one of the following slides as well. And once you have that bank account set up, you basically contact your account manager and you facilitate the investment transaction by filling out 2 simple Advanta forms that direct us to fund the investment of your retirement dollars into your LLC. We execute that, we send the funds via check, wire, or ACH, and then as soon as the funds hit that bank account, you can start investing in the name of the LLC. I do see a few questions coming in. Let me just pause real quick on this slide to go through them. First question here. If my Checkbook Control LLC purchases a property, can that property be master leased by a company I control if a non-disqualified person is the actual occupying tenant? If the master lease is to a company you control, that in itself would be the red flag from the IRS's standpoint. You may be able to facilitate that in the moment, but if you're ever audited in the future and they identify that that lease was through a company you control, that will be a red flag and identified or investigated further. So I would lean away from doing that for the person asking that question. I have an administrative account now. How difficult is it to convert this into a checkbook IRA? It's pretty simple. What you would do is get the LLC set up and then decide to either move all of the cash into the LLC that you have in your Advanta account, or you could even title over the assets you're holding administratively into the LLC. So that's something that your account manager can facilitate with you. It's a pretty simple process. Probably it would take about a week or so to get that done, maybe a little bit longer if we're talking about real estate assets where we're having to have a quitclaim deed drafted up and recorded within the municipality that the property is owned in. But as far as just setting up the LLC, very simple and straightforward. Moving cash, very simple and straightforward. Moving assets, existing assets, is just going to take assignment of ownership, depending on what asset that is really going to depend on what the timeline is. But in general, your account manager can help you through that very smoothly and simply. And then the third question I see here at this moment, if I have my own Checkbook LLC Roth, how can I ensure that my transactions are compliant like I do through Advanta and their great advice and protection? Really, I believe I mentioned that earlier. When you're using an LLC, it's up to you to do your own due diligence to make sure you're transacting compliantly with the IRS, but you also still have your client account manager as a checkbook client. So you can reach out to your account manager and talk through things you may be planning to do before you do them, just to make sure you get our feedback on what's a good item, and the quote, great advice and protection that we provide is still there for you, even if you have checkbook control. The thing is if you don't reach out and ask those questions, you are opening yourself to potentially doing something prohibited. One final question before I turn back to the slide deck. Can I open a stock brokerage account with my Checkbook LLC? The answer is yes, but you will have to reach out to the brokerage account providers and make sure they are willing and able to open an account for you in the name of an LLC as opposed to yourself individually. This falls in line with what I mentioned a few moments ago about going to the bank and opening up the LLC's bank account. I would just tell the stock brokerage company, hey, I've got an LLC, can you open an account in the name of the LLC for me? I would not get into the weeds of saying, hey, I've got an LLC owned through my retirement account, can I open it this way? They're going to end up trying to sell you on opening a retirement account through them directly, which in theory is going to multiply your retirement account administrative fees, because you're going to have one retirement account with us that holds the LLC, and they may talk you into opening up a retirement account with them. Moving the money back and forth is going to take more time, and it'd just be much easier just to say, hey, I've got an LLC, will you open up a brokerage account in the name of this LLC for me, and work with a company that's willing to do that. Again, please add your questions as I'm presenting. I'll be happy to address those as we go, but I'm going to turn back to the slides here. So filing the LLC articles, most states require that you use the term LLC or LC in the title. We request that you do not use the name Advanta or IRA in the name of your LLC. But aside from those considerations, you could name it whatever you want. It could be Corey Invests LLC. It could be Investing in the Future LLC, whatever you really want to. If that's not already taken in the state that you're registering this LLC, you can go for it. No considerations on our end besides requesting that you don't use the term IRA or the name Advanta in the name of the LLC. And that also ultimately helps you with anonymity protection as well. Registering, each state has different registration requirements, so you'll want to look into that as you're doing your due diligence. You're going to have to either list yourself as a registered agent for the LLC or enlist rather in a registered agent service. That's again typically coming to play if you're living in Georgia and wanting to register your LLC in the state of Wyoming. You may need to employ a registered agent company to serve as that capacity for your checkbook control. Management, can't stress this enough. It must be manager managed, and you have all the management signing responsibilities. The other option would be member managed, which is not allowable through this checkbook strategy. Because again, the member is your retirement account, and the member can't sign paperwork. A retirement account is not an individual, not a human being, so it's not able to sign any documentation or bind any agreements or anything like that. That has to be in the power of a human being, which would be yourself and or any other appointed managers. The operating agreement, as I went over earlier, can be as simple or as complex as you really want it to be. I've seen clients just do a Google search and send us a 3-page operating agreement. I've seen people use legal services like LegalZoom or an attorney or a CPA. We do have a list of attorneys or CPAs we can provide to our clients that will facilitate setting up these LLCs. We try to keep that list where their cost is reasonable. And when I say reasonable, roughly $300 to $500 or so, where you just tell them what you'd like the LLC to be named, and with whatever states they're allowed to do so, they register the LLC for you, provide you an operating agreement, get the tax ID number for you. They basically set it all up for you so that you just have to go open the bank account and tell us when you're ready to fund that LLC. Another question came in, can I use personal funds to pay the state registration fee required to form my LLC when getting started? Technically speaking, no, you should not be using personal funds for that. You should be using funds from the retirement account. Using personal funds is a sticky situation because you're not allowed to use your retirement account to reimburse yourself personally. So if you did that, You may not get in trouble for it per se, but it is technically against the IRS's rules, and you definitely would not be able to be reimbursed for that in the future. So that'd be something you're looking to actually pay through your retirement account as you're getting it all set up. So you're doing everything specifically according to the IRS's rules and regulations here. Provisions to the agreement, again, at a minimum, it's going to have to include an effective date, the named members and managers, any provisions as to how new members can be admitted or members can be removed, voting procedures, taxation of the LLC, which is a single member LLC, there's no taxation. If it's multiple members, you'll have to check into that a little bit further. And then the signatures from all members and managers. So keep in mind, you're signing as yourself as the manager. Advanta IRA, your account manager will facilitate a signature on behalf of your retirement account as the member, which will come from one of our authorized signatories. You may also include how the LLC is going to be wound down or terminated when you're done utilizing it, how to address disagreements between members, removal of managers, and other types of things like first right of refusal, governing law. So again, as simple as you want it to be or as detailed as you want it to be, completely up to you as you're setting these things up. Getting the tax ID number, it is pretty simple. I've set up an LLC myself. I've walked clients through the IRS's webpage for doing this. If you're doing it on the website, it's not going to look exactly like this SS4 form, but it is going to collect the same details. I've done it in about 10 minutes or so, roughly. It's pretty simple and straightforward. Not really going to get into the nuances of explaining every line item on this form, but it's generally a simple process. You're just getting your basic contact information and identifying the name of the LLC, where it's being set up, what type of LLC it's being set up for. Very straightforward. Opening the bank account, I did reference this earlier. You're going to want to bring your articles of organization to the bank, and typically at least the signature page of your operating agreement to show that you're the manager and have the ability to do so. You cannot open a credit card in the name of this LLC. Again, the investor or member is your retirement account, which is not a human being and not able to sign a personal guarantee. So a retirement account cannot open any lines of credit. It can only be a debit or a checkbook style transactional account where you're just getting access to the cash that you have on hand. You cannot open a line of credit, or your retirement account cannot be extended credit in any capacity. You can really choose any financial institution of your choice. We've got a few that have worked with clients of ours in the past that we can refer you to, or you can go to anyone that you're already working with, as long as they're willing to set up an LLC for this purpose. A few other questions came in. How do you suggest I pay the state registration fee for my LLC? That would just be through your account manager. So you tell your account manager or go to your online portal and submit a payment request that you need to get that expense covered. Is there an increased risk of challenge or audit by the IRS using the checkbook IRA versus administrative? No, typically there's no increased risk here. As far as the IRS and audits are concerned, typically our understanding is that they would need to be interested in auditing an individual before they start peeling back the layers of the onion to see what that individual holds within their retirement account. So the risk really is what you are personally at risk of in the context of an audit, and then your retirement account may be looked at. As far as, LLC versus administrative, it's neither here nor there from their standpoint. Again, as I referenced earlier with Swanson versus Commissioner and the tax court memo for TL Ellis, these are allowable investment strategies that are recognized by the IRS. So it's just the same as investing into an LLC versus investing directly into a piece of real estate versus investing into any other asset class that I've talked about here today. It can all be done within the LLC, which is the factor that we're here on this educational webinar for to learn about, but it can also, any of those assets can be held outside of an LLC just as well. So funding the Checkbook LLC, just kind of a pre-case study, if you will. I've got a gentleman named Joe who's got $150,000 in a brokerage account. He decides he wants to invest into real estate, purchase property at auctions. which is a little bit more fast access to money. If you win in an auction, you typically have a pretty tight turnaround time to pay whatever you bid on. So that may not lend itself to the normal business hours of Advanta IRA or a normal processing time, which is 1 to 2 days for an investment transaction. Having checkbook control, if you're going to auctions or doing other kind of fast dealings, is going to be a better strategy for you potentially. So what Joe's going to do is he's going to set up a self-directed account by completing an application that takes about 15 minutes. He's then going to facilitate getting the funds moved into that account, which is either going to be done via a transfer or a rollover. Existing IRAs, you just do a custodian to custodian transfer, very simple process. Money moves in roughly a week or so, depending on what custodian you're currently with. A rollover is where you're moving funds from a previous employer plan or even a current employer plan if they allow for an in-service rollover. That method is going to take a little bit longer because you're having to initiate a distribution request for rollover, having a check typically cut and mailed out, having that check received by Advanta and going on a standard 7-day deposit hold before the funds are able to move into your LLC. There is no taxable event occurring when you do the rollover, just for continuity's sake. It is taxably reported, so the IRS is getting a report saying that you distributed money out of a retirement account, which in theory is a taxable event, but the fact that you're rolling it into another qualifying plan means the taxable nature is a wash. As long as every dollar and penny that you distributed out, you roll back into another qualifying plan, there's no taxable nature occurring in that situation. Once the account is opened and the account number is issued while we're waiting for the funds to come in, that's when you get started getting the LLC set up. All the slides I just went over about the articles of organization and the tax ID number and opening up the bank account, you're handling that basically while we're waiting for the money to come in. And as soon as the money's here and we've got your LLC paperwork, we can execute the investment transaction, pushing the money into the LLC account and letting you proceed with investing through that LLC. A little bit further about funding this. The client, Joe, does have to basically approve the operating agreement he provides us. We typically do that through DocuSign. You're just executing a DocuSign that marks the operating agreement as read and approved, authorizing us to execute it on behalf of your retirement account. You'll execute it on behalf of yourself as the manager. And then you move forward investing in the name of that LLC. As I referenced with one of the participants' questions today, you shouldn't be reimbursing yourself or covering any personal expenses. So if you're setting up an LLC and wanting to buy real estate out of state and you want to travel to go see that real estate out of state, you shouldn't be paying for your flight or your meals while you're traveling there. That's your personal expense. You don't have to incur that expense. And it should not be paid out of your retirement account. This is simply to generate passive income. That's the intention behind the LLC and the retirement account in itself. So you're not allowed to compensate yourself, whether it's a salary or whether it's covering travel expenses or meals or things like that while you're serving as the manager of the LLC. Operating this type of account is fairly simple. You make the investments in the name of the LLC, they yield returns back into the LLC's account. If you ever want to push money out of the LLC, whether you're wanting to take a personal distribution of money or move it back over into a managed account to invest into publicly traded assets, that money does need to flow from the LLC back to Advanta. So you cut a check or send an ACH or a wire from your LLC back directly to your Advanta IRA account. So Joe Johnson, Advanta IRA, for the benefit of Joe Johnson, is going to receive money from the LLC so that it's back with us, labeled as uninvested or undirected cash, to either move back to another retirement account administrator, take as a personal distribution, whatever you see fit from there at that standpoint. A few other questions came in. As I'm moving to the next slide, I'll look at these real quick. Is there, oh, I'm sorry. I did read those. I just didn't move my cursor. My apology. Maintaining the checkbook. As you invest, all the flow of money comes in and out of this LLC account. You are responsible for your own bookkeeping records. So whether you want to hire a bookkeeper or set up like QuickBooks or something like that, you're responsible for keeping a good track and record of everything that you pay out, receive in, any investments you make. That's all your discretion. Again, you're taking, in theory, the administrative control there. So your administrator is not going to have all these records. We just have on our records that you invested your money into an LLC. Everything you do within the LLC becomes your responsibility to keep good records of. You can partner these LLCs, as I referenced on the disqualified person slide. Multiple partners can be an LLC. When it's a single member LLC, it's seen as a disregarded entity for tax purposes. If you have multiple members, you may have to file tax returns and tax documentation, so keep that in mind. Strategies there, maybe for each member to have a single member LLC and then set up a tertiary LLC that those checkbook control IRAs each invest into. Plenty of different strategies, different things to talk about if you wanted to. If you're an existing client, speak with your account manager. If you're a prospective client, you can contact me directly. We can talk through what your intentions or what your goals may be. So how to move money from the LLC or trust. The money goes from the LLC or trust back to Advanta and then can be distributed to the owner. You basically flip that triangle upside down as well. If you have money in an existing IRA, you move it to a self-directed IRA, and then that administrator moves it into your LLC or trust. With checkbook control, I feel like I've said this a few times now, but just making sure some of the core principles are hitting home here. The IRA is 100% owner as the member. The IRA owner is the manager. The checkbook control allows the manager to write checks, make investments, pay bills, sign contracts in the name of the LLC, and the IRA owner can appoint other managers if they want to. You may want to seek an attorney just to go over some of the legal guidance that you may want as you're setting these up and deciding on your investment strategies. So typically a custodian offers a one-stop shop for your investing. When you set up checkbook control, you're kind of taking a more hands-on approach. So with this, there's a lot of custodians that charge thousands of dollars for this type of thing. There's no real secret formula for it. It's whatever works best for you. Advanta IRA does not charge thousands of dollars for these types of setups, closer to a few $100s. If you're interested in seeing our specific fee agreement, I'm not going to go over the exact numbers here on this recorded webinar, but you can contact me directly and I'd be happy to email you the PDF fee agreement to review. But you will likely find that we're extremely competitively priced and much lower than a lot of the other companies out there that offer these types of services. And we also, if you look duly on our Google reviews or reviews wherever you find them, we have great customer service reviews and offer a lot of free educational content for our audience as well. Again, Swanson versus Commissioner and TL Ellis Tax Court memo are legal case studies that support in case law that you can have this checkbook control strategy and it's allowable and perfectly kosher, if you will, through the IRS's eyes. So please feel free to check that out or let me know if I can answer any further questions as it regards to the checkbook control strategy. I'm going to just jump into 3 case studies as to ways to how to structure checkbook control. I've talked about 2 of them pretty thoroughly here. The third one is a little bit lesser utilized option, but it is a viable option for some individuals. So starting from the top, again, this is pretty much a reiteration of what I went over a few slides ago. Joe wants to set up a single member LLC and an IRA. He completes an application, funds the account, sets up the LLC, directs Advanta to fund the LLC with his retirement dollars. Very straightforward, very simple. Not going to spend too much time looking through this one because we already did. The second way is to set up a private trust. So in this case, Joe completes an application, gets his account open while he's waiting for it to get funded, provides trust documentation, listing the IRA as the grantor and beneficiary of the trust, listing a non-disqualified person as the trustee. This trust is not in public record, so a little bit further anonymity protection than an LLC provides. Joe authorizes us to fund the trust with his retirement dollars, and once we do so, Joe coordinates with his trustee as he's looking to make investment transactions and facilitate investing through that trust. The trust will need a tax ID number. The trustee will need to obtain that. The Advanta role is to just send the funds along to the trust, and then the trustee and Joe execute and facilitate the investment transactions, making sure everything stays in that trust bank account until any point where Joe wants to take money out of the out of the trust or move money back to a managed custodian at another firm. And then the third and final way to obtain checkbook control is by a solo 401k. Specifically, the solo 401k we offer called the Do Your Own or DYO solo 401k. So with this strategy, you're basically leasing our 401k plan document from us. And aside from that plan document that you're leasing from us, you're serving as your own trustee and custodian and administrator of your 401k plan. Just again, to reiterate, solo there, our 401k plans currently cover self-employed or small business owners with no W-2 wage earners. So it can really just be set up for you and your spouse or you and a business partner. But if you have employees that you're paying taxes on, rank and file employees, your needs for that plan are going to be a little bit more than what we currently offer. We do have referral sources for other companies that offer you to self-direct through a larger 401k plan. Just reach out and let us know if you're interested in that. So with this strategy, Joe completes a DYO solo 401k application. He creates the name of the 401k plan however he'd like to, just as he would set up the name of his LLC account. And he'll need to get a tax ID number for the 401k plan so he can go establish a bank account. Once he has that tax ID number, he goes and opens a bank account at a financial institution of his choice. In the name of the 401k plan, we have a great template letter that we provide our clients that explains to the bank associates exactly what type of account they need to be opening. It's a bank account, a basic checking account or savings account in the name of a 401k plan. And once that is set up, Joe directs the money to come from his existing retirement accounts directly into this 401k bank account that does not come to Advanta IRA directly in the DYO solo 401k model. It goes straight from the existing IRA or existing 401k, 403b, 457 thrift savings plan right into this new 401k plan at the bank account Joe has established. And then from there, directly in the name of the 401k plan, Joe makes his investment transactions, just as he would with either of the other two strategies I outlined. So as we're rounding home here, just some of the pros and cons for checkbook control with respect to administrative versus checkbook control. When you're in an administrative account, it's easier to keep arm's length from your IRA funds and eliminate the potential for doing prohibited transactions. A clear record of activity with your retirement account held through Advanta, whereas you're otherwise needing to do your own bookkeeping and keep accurate records of everything. You're able to hold more assets in a checkbook control with lower fees. So typically administrators are billing based on the total number of assets you hold in your account. But if you're only holding one asset on record, that being the LLC, and then you use that LLC to invest into 5, 6, 7 different assets, you're not having to pay your administrator for 5, 6, 7 different assets at that level. You're having that all within an LLC, which consolidates the fees that you're paying to the administrator. With the LLC, there's a little bit more anonymity protection. Again, with a trust, that's not public record, so no one can go look up your trust and find out that you're the owner of it. And it's easier to make investments, whether it be with partners or just quick investments like I referenced earlier, if you're going to tax deed and lien auctions or different things that maybe you make a handshake agreement on a weekend to loan somebody some money and they need that money before the end of the weekend. You can draft up a promissory note, get the money out of the bank account or cut that person a check and basically have that transaction done without having to wait until normal business hours for Advanta to facilitate it. So which is the best strategy for you? I don't know. It's something that we could either discuss if you wanted to reach out to me directly, or you may want to have a more deep conversation with an attorney or a CPA or an advisor to see if checkbook control is a good strategy for you with your self-directed investing goals. Most clients just simply choose to have their assets administered by Advanta, but again, based on how many assets they plan to invest into or how quickly they plan to make the investments, checkbook control may be a viable strategy. It is possible to switch strategies. I know an attendee of this live webinar asked that earlier. It's a pretty simple process to either execute assignment documents, to get the assets into the LLC, or let's say you have an LLC and you decide it's too much overhead for you to be the manager there and too much record keeping, you can wind down an LLC and title those assets back directly into an administrative capacity right with Advanta. We are not able to provide counsel or advice on the investment strategies. I'm really just here to give you educational content. Key takeaways, I'd like everyone to make sure you fully understand. Checkbook control is a great strategy for investors seeking flexibility and freedom. There are some considerations when you're setting up an LLC, a trust, or a solo 401k with checkbook control, like the details of the operating agreement, what state you incorporate the entity in, what your use case is going to be for the LLC is going to determine a few factors as well. And any personal use of funds does have to flow back through your administrator to get proper reporting to the IRS. So if you have an LLC and you say, hey, I want to draw some money out of it to go on a vacation, or I'm starting to reach retirement age and I need to supplement my income, you've got to push that money from your checkbook control back to your administrator so they can report the distribution properly to the IRS. A little bit about Advanta's educational content. We do 2 of these educational webinars a week. We have a podcast that we post a new episode to each week. We have a blog on our website. And you can check out any of that. You can check out our YouTube page. We also do a investor networking call once a month, typically the final Friday of every month. For this month and next month, it's actually going to be the second Friday, if I'm not mistaken, the 15th of this month. That's called Pitch, Promote, and Prosper. If you're interested in investing and you don't know where or how to invest it, or you're an investment provider and you're looking to raise capital, everyone on that call gets a chance to say who they are and what they're looking for so that they can find their next deal or network with people that might have a deal available for them. So please feel free to check that out. It's called Pitch, Promote, Prosper. You can find it on the events page of our website. And again, with the blog, last election cycle, kind of bringing it home with vote for checkbook control. Last election cycle, there was some legislation that was getting pushed into a bill. Not a lot of people knew about it. And it was actually going to take away your ability to utilize checkbook control. Well, we're very diligent about these things, anything in our industry. And we posted a blog about it, and then we started a change.org petition. And we actually very significantly helped get that aspect pulled out of legislation to keep your rights and abilities to utilize checkbook control in your retirement account. So if you're interested in those types of things, check out our blog or just stay up to date with Advanta IRA and what we're doing, because we're always trying to protect the investors and your ability to self-direct things like that with your retirement account. It's very easy to get an account set up. I went over this earlier in my case study. Our application takes about 15 minutes. Getting your funds moved in takes roughly a week, and then making your investment is a pretty simple process. You facilitate that directly with your account manager. We typically can get a transaction done within a few business days when you bring us the paperwork ready to execute. I see a few questions came in, so I'm going to go ahead and address those until I've finished them. We've got about 5 minutes left till the hour mark. While I'm addressing these final few questions, I'll have my contact information up here on the screen again. Please feel free to reach out to me if I can assist you or answer anything further. All right, can the annual Advanta fee be paid from personal funds, and does it have to be paid from the IRA account? Our annual fees can be paid from personal funds. Clients have 2 different trains of thought here. I'll just kind of outline them both directly, not really picking a side either way. Some clients say, oh, I'd rather have my retirement account pay the annual fee to my administrator so that I'm just earning a little bit less on the investments I make, but not coming out of pocket for my administrative fees. So that's one train of thought. The other train of thought is that this is already tax deferred or tax-free money. If it's a Roth account, I don't want to pay these administrative fees with tax deferred or tax-free money. I'd rather pay out of pocket for the administrative fees. So it's completely the client's discretion. On our fee agreement, which is part of our application, you do have to provide a default debit or credit card as a billing method, but you can also check a box right below that that says, if I have cash in my retirement account, I'd like to go ahead and pay using that cash before my debit or credit card is charged. Furthermore, if you're setting up checkbook control, once the LLC is set up and funded, you can update your default billing method to use the debit card from your LLC so that we're effectively charging you to the LLC the administrative fees that are due to us. Do any of the disqualified rules change when the IRA account owner reaches retirement age and can begin withdrawing? No, the rules stay the same. And the next question here reaches retirement age question as well. How do you coordinate the checkbook with RMDs, or required minimum distributions? So when you're at required minimum distribution age, you do have to start taking money out of your account. It's based off of the total value of your account and your life expectancy. You can look at the chart on the IRS's website to see what amount or what percentage you may need to take out on an annual basis. But when you have checkbook control, your administrator, Advanta, is going to tell you at the beginning of the year what your RMD for that calendar year is. You do not have to take that RMD amount from this exact account. So if you still have a managed account over at Fidelity or Edward Jones or something like that, you can take the RMD amount relative to your Advanta IRA account out of that and basically leave your checkbook control exactly how it is. Otherwise, if you needed to take the RMD from your checkbook, as I referenced earlier in the presentation, you'll need to send the money from the checkbook back to Advanta. And then once Advanta has possession of the money, then you execute your distribution request to satisfy your RMD. All right, that is the final question I see here. I hope that this has been informational and helpful to everyone here. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach me directly, or if you're an existing client, reach out to your client account manager. And I really appreciate your time and energy for today's webinar. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.